Hello everyone. Before we dive into today's story, I'd love to ask for your support. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest content. Your comments mean the world to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts. Now, let's get started with the story. After a long, chilly January, the protagonist finally arrived on the island. As soon as she reached the port, she was amazed to see people from all walks of life living so happily together. Just as she was taking in the sights, her mother-in-law came rushing over, arms wide open. "My dear daughter-in-law, you're finally here," she exclaimed, almost bouncing as she ran. Without a second thought, she swept her new daughter-in-law up in a big bear hug, making her slightly dizzy but very welcomed. After this warm reunion, everyone else started coming over to meet the new bride. Eonyong, her husband, even brought his siblings over, eager for them to meet her. His three sisters, Eonyong, Eonyong, and Eonyong, had eyes sparkling with curiosity, almost as if they were seeing a rare, exotic creature for the first time. Eonyong's father seemed like a kind soul, and his sisters, though a bit intense, seemed sweet, well, mostly sweet. One of them handed her a small gift. When she opened it, she found a live rat, with a little bow tie. She shrieked and immediately dropped it, causing everyone to burst into laughter. After a while, she and Eonyong made their way to their new home, with a crowd of well-wishers cheering them on. But as they walked, she couldn't help feeling a bit nervous. The villagers were staring at her like she was some kind of alien, and while she knew she'd eventually get comfortable, it was still a bit unnerving. Then, out of nowhere, someone whacked Eonyong on the back. Startled, she saw it was his childhood friend, Dane, grinning from ear to ear. "I know you're all happy now that you've got yourself a girl," Dane teased, "but that's no reason to let your guard down." Eonyong smirked. "Oh, you think you can take me? Bring it on." Before she knew it, the two of them were wrestling, kicking up dust. The villagers were joking, saying how Eonyong usually won these friendly duels with Dane. At one point, Eonyong's head got knocked, and blood began trickling down his forehead. Watching this, she thought, is this what life is going to be like here? Am I really going to be okay in this village? Soon, however, it was time for the wedding, and the scene shifted to the beautiful venue. She was dressed in a gorgeous traditional bridal gown, looking like a princess. As she walked in, she spotted Eonyong in his groom's attire, looking so handsome it made her stumble a little. She couldn't believe it was happening, they were finally getting married. The ceremony ended with a sweet kiss, sealing their marriage as everyone cheered. That night, they made their way to their chamber, her heart fluttering at the thought of their first night together. She'd heard there would be an incredible feast for newlyweds, and she couldn't wait to try all the dishes. While she was daydreaming about the food, she noticed Eonyong was nervously gulping down some alcohol. When he finally called her over, she thought excitedly, the feast must be here. But suddenly, he leaned over her, his face red and flustered, and said, "I'll do my best tonight, for you." Her eyes widened. This was going to be a night to remember. As they finally settled into their wedding chamber, Eonyong leaned in to kiss her. She was a bit bewildered, wondering what on earth he was doing. When she tried to gently push him away, he just looked at her with intense eyes, murmuring, "I can't wait any longer, I've waited for you for so long." She blinked, utterly lost. Waited for what? She thought. He was acting so strange, and she couldn't understand why he was suddenly so enthusiastic. He grabbed her close, kissing her even more passionately, his grip tighter with every second. When his advances became a bit too much, she finally hit him on the arm. And shouted, "Cut it out, you idiot." Eonyong stopped, bewildered. "What's the matter? Why are you crying?" he asked, confused and a little hurt. She wiped her tears and glared at him. "That's supposed to be my question. What is wrong with you? Why are you acting like this?" He looked genuinely taken aback. "Didn't you say you wanted our wedding night to last 30 straight days? I'm just trying to do what you wanted." She was crying and laughing at the same time now. "Yes, but what I meant was I wanted a wedding feast that lasted 30 days. I wanted to eat all those special dishes only newlyweds get. Eonyong paused, blinking in shock. Not making love. They both froze as the realization set in. The miscommunication from Buddha knows where finally clicked into place, and the room fell into the most awkward silence of their lives. They were drowning in mutual embarrassment. Eonyong finally broke the silence, scratching his head and chuckling nervously. I'm so sorry, I didn't know you meant the feast. I thought, well, in my tribe, a wedding night means something a little different. She laughed, relieved, wiping her eyes. It's okay. It's not that I don't like you. It's just, this is my first time, and, well, I'm just a bit nervous. He looked surprised, and then admitted, honestly, it's my first time, too. He scooted closer, gently taking her hand. Look, let's take our time getting to know each other. No rush. She smiled softly. I like that. Thank you, dearest. Hearing her call him, dearest, made his nose start bleeding, and he asked, can I have just one kiss then? Seeing his flustered state, she laughed, patting his shoulder. They ended up talking into the night, eventually falling asleep beside each other in peaceful exhaustion. The next morning, she woke up to find the bed empty. Eonyong was already outside. She spotted an outfit laid out for her, and to her horror, it was a heavy, embroidered garment, with armor. She tried lifting it and nearly fell over. I can't wear this, she groaned. I'll just put on the clothes I brought from home. She slipped into her own comfortable clothes and decided to explore the village. As she wandered around, she sensed someone was following her. Turning around, she saw 3 intimidating men staring her down, all sporting serious expressions and long beards. One of them leaned forward, squinting. So, this is Eonyong's bride, huh? Another man grinned. All right, let's get going. It's time to give her a proper welcome. She started to panic, backing away. Please, let me go. I'm just trying to walk around. One of them laughed. Relax. You're new here, so we're gonna introduce you to the village, our way. We promise it's something you'll never forget. She gulped, thinking, wait, are they going to kidnap me? Or worse. But, as it turned out, they just wanted to bring her to the village square to introduce her to everyone. They brought her to a spot where nearly every guy in the village had gathered, their eyes glinting with curiosity. One of them looked her up and down and smirked. So, how did you manage to captivate Eonyong? With this body or whatever? Another one chimed in. I heard her favorite pastime is spear throwing. Someone else snorted. Spear throwing. With those scrawny limbs. She looked around nervously, feeling like she'd finally seen their true colors. So they really are savages, she thought, probably abducting women and selling them off. Just as one guy stepped forward, she recoiled, sure that something terrible was about to happen. Meanwhile, Eonyong was outside when he heard her voice. Without a second thought, he leapt onto his horse and galloped toward her at full speed. As she looked around in panic, a guy reached out toward her. Please, no, she begged, nearly in tears. Then, finally, Eonyong arrived, hopping off his horse and stepping in front of her. Hey, I told you all, girls from the Cho tribe are a little more delicate and timid. You need to be extra careful with how you approach them. She was sniffling, mumbling, please, just stop with the questions, I'm overwhelmed. Finally, one of the guys spoke up, revealing the true reason for the chaos. We just wanted to see your pretty ribbon. Is it true the Cho tribe has amazing craftsmanship? Another guy nudged the first. Hey, you can't just yank her hair like that. Look, she's practically in shock. Slowly, it dawned on her that they were just excited about her ribbon and her supposed skills. She blinked, taking it all in. Oh, she realized, they really think I'm a super strong warrior. One guy piped up, I heard she's a master of all sorts of martial arts techniques. And didn't she save Eonyong once from a man eating fish? They kept peppering her with questions, talking over one another. Please, one at a time, she stammered, tears still glistening in her eyes. Eonyong's friend finally nudged him with a grin. You've got interesting taste in women. Where did you find a bride like this? I thought people of the Cho tribe were all fragile and, well, a bit skittish. But she's different. When everyone finally got their fill of questions, Eonyong and Mokrin headed back home. As they rode on his horse, Eonyong chuckled, "They've been dying of curiosity. They'd only heard stories about you, so they were just excited to meet you." She managed a smile, though she still felt overwhelmed. "I didn't know they were your friends," she admitted. "I was a little startled." As they rode closer, they ended up sitting so close that she felt something poking her in the back. She glanced over, wondering what on earth it was. Eonyong stiffened, suddenly realizing the awkwardness of their position. No, he told himself. "I promised her we'd take things slow." But then she turned around, grabbing onto him for balance. She felt something. "What is this?" she asked, puzzled. He turned red, at a loss for words. "How do I explain? You're squeezing me a little too tight," he stammered. "Can you let go?" Blushing, he nudged his horse to go faster, hoping they'd reach home soon to escape the embarrassment. When they finally arrived, Eonyong was still eager for a kiss, but just as he leaned in, she stopped him. "Wait, someone's here," she whispered. To her surprise, a villager had come by and was waiting at the door. Mokrin assumed the visitor wanted Eonyong, but the villager stepped forward and bowed. "I'm here to speak with Lady Mokrin, actually." She blinked in shock. "Me? Why would anyone want to see me?" Mokrin sat with the girl, who looked both nervous and excited. "There's a tribe named Yun," she began. "Their village is about half a day away by horse. They're quiet, reserved folks, much like your tribe. And, well, there's this man I love who lives there." She sighed. "But sadly, he always avoids my glances and flirts, no matter how many times I try to talk to him." Mokrin raised an eyebrow, wondering if maybe the girl needed advice because they shared similar troubles. "Maybe she thinks I'm some kind of love expert," she thought. The girl continued, "Is there any way I can win his affection?" Mokrin replied, "If you don't mind me asking, what exactly have you been doing around him?" The girl leaned forward, as if sharing a great secret. "Well, I've been delivering 5 sacks of rice each time I visit, single-handedly, in one go." She grinned, clearly proud. Mokrin blinked, stunned. 5 sacks of rice, in one go. She was trying not to gape. "And," the girl added with pride, "I've hunted wild boar for him and even moved the giant rock blocking his field." Mokrin's face fell. This girl was like a superhero, but maybe a little too powerful for her own good. The girl went on, "But, is it still not enough to impress him? Should I maybe challenge him to a duel?" At that, Mokrin immediately interrupted. "No, don't do that. If you duel him, he might think you're trying to force him to marry you, or worse, that you're coming to claim his life." The girl looked taken aback. "Is it really that extreme?" Spotting a flower nearby, Mokrin quickly offered a gentler idea. "Why not try making him a flower wreath? Men do love a thoughtful gift." The girl looked puzzled. "A flower wreath? How can flowers possibly impress him? Wouldn't he be happier with more rice? I need to show him my strength." Mokrin sighed and insisted, "No more strength. Just try the flowers, please." After some hesitation, the girl finally shrugged. "All right, I guess there's no harm in trying something new." With that, she left. A few days later, the same girl returned, but this time with a beaming husband in tow. "Mokrin, you were absolutely right," she said, grinning. "When I gave him that flower wreath, it was like he saw a whole new side of me." Her husband looked at her lovingly, adding, "You are my flower, after all." The girl was delighted. "I'll bring you 100 flowers every day if you want." Her husband chuckled. "You're all I need, my love." After thanking Mokrin profusely, the couple left, vowing to tell everyone how perfect her advice had been. Mokrin watched them go, thinking, "Great, now everyone's going to think I'm some sort of romance guru. I hope this doesn't cause any trouble." That night, Mokrin and Eonyong finally got a moment alone and were on the brink of something romantic when someone barged in. Eonyong groaned, "Not again." Apparently, the girl from before was spreading tales of Mokrin's love advice, attracting more and more visitors looking for guidance. Eonyong was frustrated. "This is our honeymoon." But everyone keeps interrupting. The next morning, as Mokrin wandered through the village, she overheard people talking about her. They soon approached her, asking, "This is the first time the Yun tribe will join the inter-tribe festival. What gift should we prepare for them? We want it to be memorable." Mokrin tried to respond diplomatically. "I'm not sure, perhaps something that brings a smile to their faces. But remember, not all tribes share the same cultural values as the Gui people." One guy chuckled, "Don't worry, I'm actually from the Yun tribe, did you know?" Mokrin's eyes widened. "Really?" He nodded. "Many of us here come from different tribes. We're not natives, we just live here because it's a great place to make a living." This was all new to Mokrin. She'd thought each tribe stayed in their own villages. But here, she saw they were friendly, curious, and adaptable. They may have seemed rough around the edges, but they were kind-hearted. Mokrin thought, maybe my tribe could learn something from these people. That evening, she sat down and wrote a letter to her brother, describing the open-minded Gui tribe. She hoped he'd be as accepting of this new knowledge as she was. When her brother read it, however, he was far from pleased. Mokrin received a letter from her brother, and it read, "My dear sister, I'm sorry I couldn't be there to see you off when you left. The guilt has been heavy on my mind. But I'm relieved that we can still write to each other, even though we're so far apart. It's a comfort to hear you're doing well, I just wish I could see it for myself. Father got banged up recently. I couldn't tell you sooner because I wasn't sure how to reach you, but thankfully, it's not serious. A few days of rest, and he'll be back to work. In fact, he's more upset about being stuck in bed than the injury itself. Don't worry about us. Danwell Island is in good hands. I'm standing in as acting chieftain until father recovers. As acting chieftain, I have to prioritize our tribe's future above all else. That's why I found your last letter, concerning. You wrote about the Gui Hial tribe allowing outsiders to live among them, and that the things we've heard about them might just be prejudiced misconceptions. But, my sister, there's no need to speak such, well, nonsense. I know you're just trying to reassure us, but we understand what you're going through. If you find yourself missing the warmth of your true home, remember we're all here on the island, waiting for your return." When Mokrin read the letter, she couldn't believe her brother didn't believe her words. How do I show him the truth? She wondered. Meanwhile, Eonyong was chatting with Homan from another tribe. Homan mentioned, "The waters around the island have been restless lately. Something must have happened. Fish are migrating out of the area. It's like they're fleeing from something." Eonyong raised an eyebrow. "So, man-eating fish are blocking the sailing routes. Could be a natural phenomenon, but it'd be best if we sit down and discuss a solution." Eonyong, clearly feeling territorial, shot Homan a cold glance. "You just stick to your part, Homan. Leave this to me, I've got it handled." Later, Eonyong went hunting and brought back a wild boar as a gift for Mokrin. But the moment she saw the boar, she went pale, nearly fainting. Eonyong looked at her, confused. "Sorry, I didn't realize you'd never seen, well, dinner in its whole form before." Mokrin, steadying herself, sighed, "I'll try to stop reacting to everything. I need to adjust." Eonyong couldn't help but chuckle. "You're so adorable, Mokrin. I can hear your heartbeat from here." Then he noticed a letter in her hand. "Is that from your family?" Immediately, she hid it. "Oh, it's nothing special. Just my brother and me, talking, not much happening." She thought, "I can't let him read this." He gave her a knowing look. "Did your brother upset you again?" She stammered, No, not at all. Even if he did, you don't need to worry. I wouldn't want to trouble you with my family's problems." He paused, looking a bit hurt. "Ah, your family problems. I see." Realizing she'd made it sound like he wasn't her family, she quickly tried to backtrack. No, that's not what I meant. You are my family, my husband, of course. I'm still just new to all this." Eonyong smiled, ruffling her hair playfully. "Don't worry, I understand. It's your private letter, I shouldn't have pried." She sighed. "He's completely misunderstood me again." To break the awkward silence, Eonyong said, "You must be hungry. Let's get ready for dinner." They shared a peaceful meal, and Mokrin almost forgot about her brother's letter, until a few days later, when she went to check her letter box and found it completely empty. Someone had stolen all her letters. Mokrin ran to seek help and found her mother-in-law. "Mother, please, listen to me," she said, out of breath. Her mother-in-law looked at her, a bit puzzled. "What's wrong, dear? Have you seen Eonyong?" Mokrin asked, hesitating. "I don't think I've seen him all day. He's usually off in the mountains around this time. Is something the matter?" Mokrin hesitated. "No, nothing important." Trying to change the subject, she asked, "Are the village children learning how to read and write?" Her mother-in-law's face brightened. "Yes. Your husband actually suggested it a few years ago. He wanted the children to have a proper education, so we started classes." Mokrin noticed a group of excited kids practicing their letters. Eonyong's sister was among them, sitting with the children and learning too. Watching them, Mokrin's worries faded for a moment, but she still needed to find Eonyong. She decided to search for him in the mountains. But when she arrived, the vast expanse made her feel lost. "How am I supposed to find him in this whole mountain?" she muttered. "And who could have taken the letters? I just hope it wasn't him." Suddenly, she heard a voice. Relieved, she thought it must be Eonyong and, without a second thought, rushed up and hugged the figure from behind. "I was looking for you everywhere." But then, she realized something was off. This body was different. Too tall and muscular. She quickly pulled away, mortified. "Who are you?" The man turned with a smile and, unfazed, said, "Ah, to encounter such beauty in a place like this, surely fate has brought us together." He took her hand gently and added, "The moment I laid eyes on you, I knew I was bound to your love. From this day forth, I shall be your devoted servant." Mokrin's eyes widened. I'm already married." The man just laughed. "A minor obstacle. It will only make our love stronger in the end. No need to deny your heart's desire." Just then, Eonyong appeared, his sword drawn and resting on the stranger's throat. "Unhand my wife." The stranger smirked, spinning around to face him. "Eonyong, it's been too long." Eonyong narrowed his eyes. "Yundo Wong," he muttered with distaste. "Sneaking around like a rat and harassing married women now. Don't you have anything better to do?" Mokrin blinked in surprise. They knew each other. Yundo laughed. "So, it's true you're married now. Hard to believe, who'd have thought the reckless Eonyong would settle down?" Eonyong didn't look pleased. "Says the liar who's been doing this nonsense for years. And you have the nerve to blame me." They both glared, looking like old friends in the middle of a petty argument. Mokrin thought about stepping in to stop them, but a hand suddenly rested on her shoulder. She turned to see an old man with a gentle smile. "Nice to meet you, my lady. I am Master Yundo's lieutenant," he said calmly. "Those two trained under the same master. They're always at each other's throats like dogs and cats whenever they meet." Meanwhile, Yundo taunted, "I challenge you to a duel, Eonyong. For I have fallen in love at first sight with your wife, and I shall make her mine." Eonyong clenched his fists. "Oh, you're on." Both men squared off, ready to start their duel. Mokrin watched as Eonyong and Yundo began their duel, unsure of how to stop them. She tried calling out, but neither man paid her any attention, so finally, she sighed and tossed a pebble in their direction. When it bounced off their heads, both men paused, blinking at her in surprise. Yundo chuckled, amused by the interruption, and stepped forward. "Allow me to introduce myself properly, my lady. I am Yundo, chieftain of the Haya tribe to the east. We rule through inheritance and bloodline, so if you marry me, a life of wealth and prosperity is yours. Should you tire of your current bore," he shot a smug look at Eonyong, "know that my arms are always open." Eonyong, visibly irritated, yanked Mokrin closer. "She's my wife, you loser. Go, find your own." Yundo just smirked and waved. "Oh, we'll meet again, my lady. Until then, farewell." As Yundo sauntered off, Mokrin looked at Eonyong and smiled, "He's such an amusing friend. We should invite him for tea sometime." Eonyong scowled. "Absolutely not. Don't you dare let your guard down around him. And take care not to run into him, even by accident." Mokrin noticed his unusual mood and tilted her head, puzzled. He's never looked at me like that before, she thought. Eonyong cleared his throat awkwardly, breaking the silence. So, what are you doing up here, anyway? Mokrin's face lit up, remembering her lost letters. Lost my letters. I was wondering if you'd seen them anywhere. He blinked. You mean the letters from your family? She nodded. Well, I found this in the chest where you keep them, he admitted, holding up a piece of parchment. Her eyes widened. So, it was you. Eonyong looked taken aback. What? You think I took them? You're suspecting me. Mokrin thought about denying it, but the truth was obvious. She didn't respond, and when he tried to reach for her, she pulled back. Eonyong frowned, looking hurt. Do you want to go home? What are you talking about? Mokrin asked, confused. He sighed. You miss them, don't you? Your true family. Isn't that why you're holding onto those letters? You've been here for 2 months now, but you still won't wear our tribe's garments, and every time I try to spend time with you, you're busy with some guest. You don't trust me, do you? Mokrin's face softened. How could you say that? You have no idea what kind of inner battle I fought to leave my only home and start a new life here with you. Turning away, Eonyong muttered, think what you want. Mokrin thought, maybe our marriage troubles will just work themselves out over time without needing to sit down and talk. But she realized, with a pang, that their misunderstandings were only growing. Determined to get to the bottom of the letters, they headed to a nearby cabin. As they were about to enter, Eonyong's little sister, Eonyong, emerged, clutching a stack of letters to her chest. Her eyes widened, and she bolted. Wait! Mokrin shouted as she and Eonyong ran after her. Stop, the mountains are dangerous. But Eonyong didn't slow down. Just as she was about to trip over the edge of a cliff, Mokrin managed to grab her arm. Eonyong clung to her, stammering apologies, but just then, a gust of wind lifted the letters, sending them scattering down the mountainside. Eonyong lunged to catch them but lost his balance, teetering on the edge of the cliff. Mokrin grabbed his arm, struggling to pull him back. Eonyong, go get help from the village. Eonyong gave her a strained smile. The truth is, I wanted those letters gone. It hurt me that you kept them secret from me, I felt pathetic and jealous. Stop acting like these are your last words. Mokrin cried. His weight was pulling her down, and she could feel his grip slipping. Eonyong looked into her eyes. I never realized how hard it is to open up, even to someone you care about. I kept hoping you'd just understand me without needing any explanation. But that wasn't fair of me. From now on, I'll be more open, so please, don't let go. Tears filled Mokrin's eyes. Why would I ever let go? Don't you dare let go of my hand, Eonyong. And I mean forever. I don't need the letters, just use your other hand and climb up, please. Eonyong's hand began to slip, and for a heart-stopping moment, Mokrin thought he was falling, but then, he steadied himself and managed to climb back up, safe at last. Mokrin thought Eonyong was gone forever, her heart heavy with despair. But then, she heard a familiar voice call her name. Mokrin. It was Eonyong. She spun around, startled, and saw him standing there, brushing dust off his sleeves like he'd just returned from a leisurely stroll. With a sheepish grin, he said, "You were right. Once I used both hands, climbing back up was much easier. I hope I didn't scare you too much." Mokrin froze for a moment, then bolted toward him, throwing herself into his arms. She sobbed, clinging to him. "That letter, it wasn't what you thought it was. It was from my brother, and I kept it from you because I thought there might still be bad blood between you two. I never thought of leaving you." Eonyong wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "Mokrin, I'm sorry. I let my jealousy and my stupid assumptions get the better of me. I should have trusted you." She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "No, I'm the one at fault. I expected you to understand me without ever explaining myself. That wasn't fair of me." He smiled softly, wiping a tear from her cheek. "We're both new to this. A bumpy road was bound to happen. Let's not blame ourselves. From now on, I'll be more open and honest about my feelings." Mokrin nodded, her tears now a mix of relief and happiness. Me too. They embraced again, and this time, their lips met in a kiss filled with all the love and reassurance they'd been too scared to express before. By the time they got home, both were exhausted but content. Later that evening, as they prepared for bed, Eonyong suddenly turned serious. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "Mokrin," he said, his voice low, "can I kiss you?" She blinked, startled by his sudden formality. "You're my husband. You don't need to ask." His lips quirked into a teasing grin. "I just wanted to make sure you're ready." Her heart skipped a beat. "I am," she whispered. What began as a soft, sweet kiss quickly deepened, their emotions spilling over. Mokrin felt that familiar tingling sensation rush through her, overwhelming her senses. Her thoughts became a blur, her world narrowing to just him. Eonyong's self-control wavered as he pressed her closer. "Tell me if I should stop," he murmured, his voice strained. But Mokrin shook her head. "No, don't stop. I want this. I want us to be together in every way." Her words shattered the last thread of restraint he had. He kissed her again, more passionately this time, their connection growing stronger with every touch. As the night deepened, they surrendered to their emotions, fully committing themselves to one another, their love finally unspoken but fully understood. The next morning, Mokrin awoke with something heavy draped across her. It took her a moment to realize, it was Eonyong. And then the memories from the night before hit her like a tidal wave. Her cheeks flushed a deep red. As she thought, "Oh my gosh, we really did make love last night." As she recalled the experience, she gasped, thinking, "I've never felt anything like that before in my life. Is this what all the fuss was about?" Then, a new worry popped into her head. Did he enjoy it as much as I did? She sneaked a glance at her husband, his bare chest rising and falling peacefully as he slept. She blushed even harder, noting his strong physique. How is it fair for a man to look that good? Her gaze shifted a bit lower, and she hesitated, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "I hope my chest isn't too small for his liking." Just then, Eonyong's eyes opened. He'd apparently been awake the whole time, listening to her internal monologue with a grin. He let out a hearty laugh, causing her to nearly jump out of bed. Towering over her as she lay tangled in the sheets, he teased, "You seem deep in thought this morning. Anything you'd like to share?" Mokrin stammered, "No, I was just wondering if you enjoyed last night too." Eonyong's eyes gleamed mischievously as he tried to keep himself from laughing out loud. He looked like a wolf ready to pounce, and Mokrin quickly waved her hands, flustered. "No, no, no. Not this early in the morning," she protested. With a grin, he finally let her go, and she quickly escaped to start her chores. But as she walked around, she felt her back aching. "How did I survive 3 days of that?" she thought, bewildered. Eonyong still didn't seem entirely satisfied. "Is it because I'm not meeting his expectations?" She shook her head. No need to dwell on that, she told herself, clutching a letter she'd just written to her brother Mokyin. She'd shared in the letter about her new life and how talking with Eonyong had taught her that honesty is the foundation of every relationship. "I have no choice but to keep knocking on his door sincerely until he opens up," she thought. As Mokrin made her way into the village, a group of village women called her over. She greeted them politely, and they beamed, one saying, "It's been ages since we've seen you, dear." Another nudged her with a grin. "Oh, we know how it is with newlyweds in their honeymoon phase." The teasing didn't stop there. "So, are you enjoying your time with your husband, Mokrin?" One woman added with a wink. Mokrin's cheeks reddened, but she forced a smile. "Well, yes, I suppose." One woman laughed, "Of course. Just imagine the two of them. Eonyong is a man, after all, and he seems to like his women, a bit buxom." Mokrin's smile faltered. "Buxom," she thought, repeating the word over and over. "But I'm not buxom." Could that be why he looked upset this morning? Lost in her spiraling thoughts, Mokrin said with a sad face, "No, he's not actually that happy." The other women stopped mid-giggle, surprised. "Wait, what? Is something wrong, Mokrin?" Mokrin poured her heart out, explaining her fears and worries. The women exchanged looks of shock. You mean you're not sure if he's enjoying, you know? Mokran's face turned crimson. Please, don't be so loud, she whispered, tears welling up. One woman placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. My dear, Eonyong waited for 5 long years to be with you. Trust me, he's not the kind to act wishy-washy. Another agreed, he wears his heart on his sleeve. If he's with you, it's because he truly wants to be. Just then, one of the women clapped her hands. We can't talk about such serious matters without a little something to drink, can we? Let's get some wine. The other women cheered, and before Mokran could protest, she found herself surrounded by laughter, drinks, and endless advice. As the day wore on and night fell, Eonyong finally came to look for Mokran. He found her in the village. Women in a drunken heap, giggling and singing. Mokran spotted him, beaming with delight as she stumbled toward him and threw her arms around his neck. Oh, it's you, she slurred happily, clinging to him like he was her lifeline. Isn't the moon just beautiful tonight? Trying not to laugh, Eonyong gently tried to keep her steady, his hand hovering awkwardly as she swayed. But Mokran wrapped herself around him tighter, her body pressed close, and before he could react, well, let's just say his elephant started honking. Eonyong's face flushed, and he cleared his throat, trying to keep his composure. Mokran, maybe we should get you home. But Mokran simply giggled and whispered in his ear, home sounds perfect. Seeing Mokran get so tipsy, Eonyong was just about to guide her home when, to his horror, she started fumbling with her dress, trying to undress right there. He froze, feeling a primal urge stir within him but somehow managed to restrain himself. When Mokran lost her balance, he quickly swooped in to pick her up and carry her home. Once there, she had a small scrape on her leg from stumbling, so he knelt down to clean it. As he carefully dabbed her leg, he murmured, let me know if your head starts hurting, okay? You're probably too drunk to feel anything right now. Mokran, however, had other thoughts brewing. She looked at him with misty, dramatic eyes and blurted out, do you prefer big girls? Eonyong's brain stalled for a split second, and he reflexively said, yes. Then he realized what he'd said, his eyes widening in panic. Wait, no, I mean, what did you ask? Too late. Mokran's eyes filled with tears, and she wailed, I knew it. I'm not big enough for you. That's why you fell asleep last night. Eonyong scrambled to calm her down. Wait, that's not what happened. Mokran was inconsolable. The village women told me. They said that if a man falls asleep after, it means he's bored. They also said if a man is really attracted to a woman, he won't last more than 1 round, but you kept going and going. At this, Eonyong's eyes narrowed. Those women were totally messing with her. He tried to reassure her. None of that is true, Mokran. Besides, I love everything about you. But Mokran wasn't finished. And your chest is bigger and rounder than mine. It's not fair. Eonyong tried to laugh it off. No, look, my chest isn't all that impressive. He opened his shirt, revealing his chest. See, pretty average. Mokran, however, took this as a challenge. With a gleam in her eye, she launched herself at him, pinching and biting him. I'll teach you a lesson. Before he knew it, Eonyong's nose started bleeding profusely, and they had to hurry to the village physician. The physician, upon seeing Eonyong's bloodied face, was puzzled. What on earth happened here? Eonyong, of course, couldn't reveal the real reason and stammered something about accidental exertion. The doctor just gave him a suspicious look, handed him some herbs, and asked, by the way, did you ever finish the last round of medicine I gave you? Eonyong quickly shook his head. No, I ran out. The physician sighed, I warned you. Your affliction is nearly incurable. You should be careful. Mokran's face paled. Incurable, affliction, and I didn't even notice. Meanwhile, Eonyong was desperately signaling to the doctor to say no more. The physician left with a heavy sigh, leaving Mokran in full-blown worry mode. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she looked at Eonyong. Why didn't you tell me you were in so much pain? You should have told me right away. Seeing her concerned face, Eonyong felt his face heat up again. She's got the wrong idea again, he thought, panicked. How do I explain it's just? Well, how hard it is to control myself around her. He quickly reassured her. It's nothing serious, really. My body just overreacts when I get too excited. It's because we're newlyweds, that's all. The medicine is just for emergencies. But Mokrin wasn't convinced. Then I'll go with you to get more. Eonyong tried to protest. It's a long journey, Mokrin. You don't have to. But she was firm, crossing her arms. We're husband and wife. We'll face everything together. The next day, they prepared to leave for their journey. Mokrin was amazed at the sheer amount of supplies Eonyong was loading onto the horse. He grinned and explained, it's a 6-day journey, so we need a lot to get through it. Then his mother swooped in, bringing even more items for Mokrin's comfort. Eonyong and his mom started piling on things while Mokrin and her father-in-law exchanged a look that clearly said, 7 like mother, like son. Finally, with enough supplies to rival a small army, the two of them set off. It was Mokrin's first big adventure outside the village, and though she was excited, a bit of nervousness crept in. As the sun set, her enthusiasm was dampened by a sore back from riding. Can I even make it there in one piece? She wondered. Eonyong noticed her discomfort and encouraged her. Look over there. Isn't this place beautiful? This is where we'll camp tonight. Mokrin took in the view, a picturesque scene of rolling hills and a glowing sunset. She was instantly enchanted and thought, I hope one day my people can see the outside world, just like me. As they gazed, Eonyong shared stories of their destination. Where my master lives, the mountains are covered in perpetual snow. You'll love it. Mokrin's eyes lit up. Snow that never melts. I've never even seen snow before. Eonyong chuckled. Just don't let go of the reins, or you'll end up off the saddle. No sooner had he said this than she wobbled, nearly falling off her horse. He quickly steadied her, and she laughed. I'm really starting to look forward to this trip. I want to remember every detail so I can describe it to my tribe when I get back. After several days of travel, they finally reached the snow-covered mountains. But the intense chill cut right through to her bones. Shivering, Mokrin whispered, is snow always this brutal? Eonyong looked puzzled. It's usually not this intense. This is the first time I've seen snow like this. Suddenly, they heard an ominous rumble echoing through the mountains. Eonyong squinted, realizing too late what it was. Avalanche. Mokrin, grab my hand, quickly. But the snowstorm was blinding, and Mokrin could barely see him. In the chaos, she lost her footing and was swept away. As the snow engulfed her, she thought, this is it. I'm really going to die here. When the avalanche finally subsided, a lone traveler noticed a horse without a rider nearby. Approaching, he spotted something half buried in the snow. It was a leg, Mokrin's leg. He hurried over, finding her unconscious but still breathing, separated from Eonyong, lying cold and alone in the snow. Meanwhile, Eonyong was buried in the snow, only to be rudely awoken by a bird pecking at him. He bolted upright, shouting, I thought I was a goner. Relief was short-lived, though, as he quickly realized something was missing, Mokrin. Panicked, he scrambled to his feet, searching desperately, only to find her scarf and hat scattered nearby. His eyes landed on a small bell lying in the snow, and recognition dawned on him. I think I know where she is. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit cabin, Mokrin stirred awake, groggy and confused. She blinked at her unfamiliar surroundings, trying to piece things together. A strange man loomed near her, and she gasped, Who are you? Why am I naked? She tugged at the blanket wrapped around her, face turning scarlet. The man just stared blankly, his gaze oddly intense, more like a curious animal than a person. Before she could demand an answer, the door burst open, and in strode Eonyong, eyes narrowing as he took in the scene, his very naked wife and a very unfamiliar man. Eonyong's fists clenched as he barked, Who are you? Name yourself, or I swear I'll. Just then, an elderly man entered, completely unfazed, carrying a bucket of water. With a casual splash, he doused them both. All right, enough drama. Boys, you're as hot-headed as ever, he said, chuckling. Eonyong's jaw dropped. Master. The elderly man, now easily recognizable, was none other than his master, with his signature bell dangling around. Settling in, Eonyong tried to catch up with his master, while Mokrin sat awkwardly wrapped in blankets. I was surprised to find a stranger here, master, Eonyong remarked, eyeing the silent young man who had rescued Mokrin. I didn't know you had taken on an assistant. He's a bit unusual, the master chuckled. He grew up with animals in the mountains, so he's still learning human communication. The young man continued to sweep the floor in silence. The master pulled out a basket of food and gave Eonyong a knowing look. Didn't I give you enough medicine last time? Or is it because, he glanced at Mokrin with a grin, you now have your beautiful wife with you? Mokrin, shocked, blurted out, I don't understand. Eonyong told me it was an incurable disease. Before she could ask anything further, Eonyong jumped up, red-faced. Master, about that medicine, can I just take some and go? He practically shoved his master toward the door, muttering hurried excuses. But Mokrin couldn't shake her worry. Is he sick because of me? Am I the reason he's like this? She resolved to find out the truth, though judging by Eonyong's face, it was going to be one heck of an awkward conversation. The next morning, Mokrin and Eonyong sat together, talking as the sun rose. Master says the medicine needs to sit for 2 more days, Eonyong said. In the meantime, I'll show you around. This place holds a lot of fond memories for me. He paused, suddenly looking sentimental. Mokrin smiled. I look forward to it. Eonyong puffed out his chest a bit. I trained here for 4 years to become strong and reliable, for you. Yundo tried to get rid of me every chance he got, but I always survived. It was thoughts of you that got me through the worst days. Mokrin, touched but a bit uneasy, thought to herself, could all his recent illnesses and the way he keeps butting heads with his friends really be because of me? Just then, the silent, buff assistant appeared, catching Mokrin's eye. She stared a bit, thinking, wow, he's really strong. I wish I were that strong. Eonyong noticed her gaze and immediately tried to divert her attention. Hey, how about we, build a snow house? Or, snowman making contest. Or let's, look at this tree over here. He bounced from one distraction to another, trying to steer her gaze away from the assistant, who was minding his own business and clearly much more muscular than him. Their master came out and sighed. If you two have this much free time, why don't you go gather firewood? Eonyong quickly jumped in. Master, my wife is far too fragile and delicate for manual labor. The master raised an eyebrow. I wasn't talking about her. I was talking about you. Get going, with the assistant. With a huff, Eonyong readied himself for work and turned to Mokrin. Stay warm inside, okay? And don't leave the house without me, it's far too dangerous out there. Mokrin sat back, feeling a pang of uselessness. Maybe he's right, am I really just a burden? She thought, slumping into a chair. Master noticed her gloomy expression and patted her shoulder. She thought to herself, enough with the negative thoughts, I should keep busy. She tidied the cabin until it was spotless, but even then, she still felt down. The master appeared with a warm drink. Come with me, I want to show you something outside. He chuckled, noticing her hesitation. Don't worry, I'll talk to Eonyong. As they walked, Mokrin wondered, what does master think of me now? He didn't seem so welcoming at first. Breaking the silence, master grinned. Tell me, who do you think would win in a fight, me or your husband? Mokrin chuckled. Oh, you'd win, of course. No one can defeat you, master. The master looked completely flabbergasted. Seriously, Eonyong can't even overpower a wild boar with his bare hands. An old man like me wouldn't stand a chance. They finally reached a towering wall of ice. Mokrin gazed up, impressed. This looks like a challenge even Eonyong would struggle with. Master looked at her thoughtfully. Leaving the only home you've known to fit into a new tribe, it's no small feat. The Guihial tribe values physical strength above all else, so it's natural that you might feel out of place. But remember, strength isn't everything. This wall won't fall to brute force. What melts it in the end is gentle sunlight. Mokrin's face lit up as she realized, I am not a Gui Heal, and I don't have to be. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. Feeling lighter, she smiled. I knew the answer all along, but my insecurities kept me from seeing it. Master chuckled. It's been a while since someone actually listened to me. Eonyong doesn't care for inspirational talk. He'd rather charge forward and say, I am the sunlight. He laughed, and Mokrin joined in, her spirits lifted. That night, as snow began to fall and evening settled in, Mokrin waited anxiously for Eonyong. Even Master looked a bit worried. She glanced outside, seeing the snow picking up, and decided she couldn't just sit by, she had to go find him. Meanwhile, Eonyong and the assistant were trudging through the blizzard. The assistant suggested, there's a cave nearby, we should stop there. No, Eonyong snapped. My wife's waiting. I have to get back to her. She's fine, Master is with her, the assistant replied. You don't get it. I need to protect her. Eonyong coughed hard, suddenly feeling dizzy. Blood trickled from his nose, and he stumbled, mumbling, I have to get back. Just then, he saw a hazy vision of Mokrin and Master running toward him. He blacked out as he collapsed. When he came to, Master was scolding him. Did you even bother to read the ingredients? You've been overdosing on poisonous plants and venom. No wonder you're bleeding everywhere. Eonyong blinked, groggy and panicked. Master, am I dying? He suddenly trembled, grabbing Master by the collar. Please, I don't want to die. Mokrin and we have a bright future ahead. I beg you. Master rolled his eyes. I never said you were dying. In fact, by ingesting poison, you've developed resistance. No more nosebleeds. Eonyong shot up with joy, fist pumping. Yes. No more medicine, no more hiding. I'm poison immune. I'm a beast. Master sighed, muttering, strong as a boar and now immune to poison. Some people have all the luck. Then he added, you know, your stubbornness might be stressing your wife out. Eonyong looked puzzled. What do you mean? Master snapped, you constantly hover over her, stop her from socializing, and forbid her from leaving without you. Do you ever consider how that affects her? Eonyong looked down, guilt creeping in. I know, but I just can't bear the thought of life without her. If someone took her away, his voice trailed off. Outside, Mokrin listened, heart melting, and walked in, blushing. Master's right, Eonyong, she said softly. But I never doubted you were trying to protect me. And it made me realize, I can support you in my own way, too. Eonyong looked at her, moved. I thought I was keeping you safe, but maybe I was just making things harder. They hugged tightly, and Mokrin laughed as he whispered, I'm sorry I worried you. But, now that I'm all better, there's something I need to tell you. Blushing, he mumbled, the nosebleeds were caused by, excessive blood flow to a certain body part. Mokrin turned crimson. Oh, believe me, Master told me, she said, barely able to look him in the eye. Relieved, he wrapped his arms around her, leaning in with a grin. No more nosebleeds. Alive and kicking. So, how about? She put a finger to his lips, playfully. How about just a hug for now? The next day, as they prepared to leave, Mokrin thanked the Master. Take care, and keep this in mind, he whispered something in her ear. Just then, Eonyong burst in, looking suspicious. What was that? Since when are you two best friends? Mokrin just smiled and thanked Master. I'll remember what you said. Master gave Eonyong a teasing grin. Oh, don't worry, she's all yours. As they rode back, Eonyong asked, by the way, what did Master say to you? Mokrin giggled. It's a secret. She spurred her horse, leaving him in her dust. Master's advice echoed in her mind. Eonyong may be a little dense, but being with you has truly changed him. You're his world now, Mokrin. She smiled, holding his words close. Finally, they reached the village, greeted by vibrant decorations and festival preparations. Eonyong's best friend filled them in. The inter-tribe tournament is happening soon. Mokrin suggested, let's host it in my village this year. It's the perfect way for my people to understand and appreciate Eonyong better. Everyone gaped at her, then broke into smiles, agreeing. Eonyong lifted her up, twirling her around. My wife is a genius. And so, the tournament was set, and Mokrin felt a surge of excitement as she imagined her two worlds coming together. All the Prime Tournament members were soon on their way to Mokrin village. As they arrived, boats filled the harbor, making the villagers wonder if they'd come to invite them to a grand event. As they arrived, boats filled the harbor, making the villagers wonder if they'd come to invite them to a grand event. But as people disembarked, it was clear they weren't here to cause trouble, just curious travelers chatting among themselves about the quaint village. Mokrin came running to her father and brother. I hope this isn't too much of a shock for you, she said, trying to catch her breath. Let me explain why they're all here. Her father was wide-eyed. So, all these people, they're from the mainland. Beyond the sea. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Eonyong and his friend were watching the waves, contemplating the smooth sailing they'd had. Eonyong's friend joked, crossing the sea was easier than I thought. The winds were in our favor, and, hey, no man-eating fish trying to chew our toes off. Eonyong chuckled. Those fish must have been scared off by the sheer number of people crossing the water. They're like monsters, but they turn into bunnies the second they spot too much competition. As evening fell, the villagers and visitors alike gathered for a feast. Barbecue smoke filled the air, and everyone was having a grand time. Mokrin's mother-in-law clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. Attention, everyone, let's give a big round of applause for Chief Ikman. He's been so kind to host this year's tournament on his island. Some villagers gossiped among themselves, is it like this every day on the mainland? One of the visitors answered with a wry grin, hardly. Life's brutal over there. Danger at every turn. It's nothing like this. Another visitor muttered, you can thank those Eonyong tribe leaders. They're ruthless. Look at that poor guy from their tribe, bet he was dragged here against his will. Ironically, that same, poor guy, was busy showing off his moves, landing a solid punch to some local bully. Nearby, Eonyong eavesdropped on this conversation, feeling a bit smug. Finally, people were beginning to see his tribe in a different light. Just then, Eonyong, his friend, strolled over and sat down. Eonyong, why are you here? Eonyong asked, a bit suspiciously. Eonyong shrugged. I'm here for the tournament. And hey, I wanted to say hi to Mokrin. Where is she? Eonyong glared. You better not try anything funny. Eonyong chuckled. Calm down. I admit she's attractive, but don't worry. I'm not here to wreck your marriage. You married the right girl, you know. Eonyong blushed furiously, clearly struggling to hide his feelings. Oh, that blush is priceless. Eonyong teased. Go on, lover boy, go to your wifey. Eonyong, still red-faced, mumbled, mind your own business. And made a quick exit, with Eonyong laughing the whole time. Inside the house, Mokrin was having a heart-to-heart with her brother. These people are good, kind people, she insisted. That's why I truly believe in them, and my husband especially. He makes me feel cherished and loved. Her brother frowned. So you don't mind forgetting the atrocities they've committed against our people? As their conversation continued, Eonyong was heading toward the room, eager to see Mokrin. But as he reached the door, he overheard her brother raise his voice. So, you admit you didn't love him when you married him? Eonyong's heart sank. She didn't love me when we married, he thought, feeling as if the ground was slipping from under his feet. Mokrin sighed. You're right, brother. I wasn't in love with him back then. Just then, fireworks exploded outside, and Eonyong quickly ducked out, leaving the plate of food he'd brought. Mokrin noticed the food and realized Eonyong must have been eavesdropping. She raced outside to find him. Meanwhile, out at sea, a strange creature stirred among the waves, muttering, I'm hungry. Ignoring her brother's protests, Mokrin bolted after Eonyong. Let me go, brother. I need to find him. Her brother tried to stop her. Forget about him, Mokrin. Come back to your real family. But Mokrin shook him off. Going back won't change who I've become. I might have married him to keep the peace, but that's not the only reason. I love him now, and nothing you say will change that. Her brother was livid. Love? You mean you love one of those cursed Eonyong people? Meanwhile, Eonyong was wandering through the forest, battling a flood of emotions. Has she been rejecting me out of fear this whole time? Just then, Mokrin found him, calling his name. But he whispered to himself, I see now what I must do. I'll atone for what I've done to her, no matter the cost. He caught sight of Mokrin's brother approaching and raised his sword. So, you want to fight? Mokrin's brother scoffed. Very well. If you think this duel will solve anything, then let's do it. The two men squared off, clashing swords until Eonyong was wounded. Mokrin arrived, horrified at the sight of them fighting. Stop this, she cried, begging for help. But the villagers only shook their heads. Just as her brother prepared to strike again, a massive sea monster emerged from the ocean, tentacles flailing. It lunged toward Mokrin, but Eonyong leapt to protect her. The villagers panicked, scrambling to escape. Eonyong turned to Mokrin. There's a ship anchored on the other side of the island. Get everyone to safety. What about you? She asked, eyes wide with worry. We'll take care of the monster, he replied, giving her a reassuring nod. His friend Yundo chimed in, I've read about creatures like this. They live in the deep sea and only resurface every few centuries. Looks like it's awake now. Eonyong saw a glowing gem embedded in the monster's body. That must be its weak spot. He formulated a plan. Yundo, can you keep one of its tentacles occupied for 10 seconds? Yundo gave him a thumbs up. You got it. Eonyong seized the opening, launching himself at the monster's gem. With a final, powerful strike, he shattered it, and the creature let out a thunderous roar, collapsing into the sea. One side of the island was in chaos as villagers were evacuating, while the brave mainlanders were in a life-or-death battle with the sea monster. Mokrin's brother grabbed her arm. What are you waiting for? Those people can handle themselves. Let's go. Mokrin wasn't having it. You don't get it, she snapped. Those people are risking everything, facing down a monster the size of a mountain, and all for our tribe. I can't just stand by while they sacrifice themselves. I have to help. I may be Cho, but I'm also Eonyong now, and they are my family too. With that, Mokrin jumped onto a horse and sped off toward the battle, leaving her brother flabbergasted. Meanwhile, Eonyong had managed to wound the monster by stabbing its gem-like weak spot. For a moment, everyone cheered, thinking it was over. But Eonyong's instincts told him otherwise. Wait, why is it still standing? As if on cue, the monster's eyes glowed red, and it roared back to life, much to everyone's horror. Mokrin arrived just in time to see the chaos. Her uncle was already injured, and Eonyong was barely holding on. She remembered her husband's advice and, with all her strength, hurled a spear toward him. Eonyong caught it, impressed, and then struck the monster's core, finally felling it. Just as the monster collapsed, it emitted a noxious cloud. Eonyong, exhausted and wounded, collapsed to the ground. Mokrin tried to run to him, but others held her back, warning her about the poison. When she saw Eonyong lying still, bleeding, Mokrin's heart sank. She knelt beside him, whispering, Eonyong, you taught me so much. You showed me the beauty of sunsets, the joy of laughter, and the warmth of love. I wouldn't trade a single memory. I love you. She took his hand and sobbed. Then, suddenly, Eonyong's eyes opened. Did I just hear you say you love me? Shocked and relieved, she smiled through her tears. Yes, you foolish man. I love you. I chose you, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Her father and brother, watching the scene, were stunned. Her father murmured, my daughter loves this man. One of the villagers piped up, well, we saw it with our own eyes. He saved us from that sea monster. Maybe they try invade us, but I can overlook this. Eonyong's mother, who'd been listening, cleared her throat. Wait, so you thought we came here to invade? Oh, heavens no. We just wanted to get rid of the man-eating fish so we could open up trade between our tribes. Mokrin's father was dumbstruck. So, you didn't come here to take over? Oh, goodness no, she replied. We just wanted to make a grand entrance. First impressions. Well, you sure did, someone muttered. A bit too grand, if you ask me. Finally, both tribes realized their entire conflict had been one massive misunderstanding. With the monster gone and mutual respect blossoming, they agreed to sit down and have a proper conversation. By the next day, Mokran's father and Eonyong's mother were discussing plans for lasting peace between the tribes. Later, at night, Mokran felt it was time to confront her husband for hiding his true feelings all this time. She thought of tying him up, but before she knew it, he had her in his arms, pulling her close. He kissed her, ignoring his injuries. You should rest, she warned, half-heartedly. Rest? I just fought a monster. I think I deserve a reward. He grinned. Mokran smirked. How about you leave some proof of that victory on me, then? The days passed with peace finally reigning over both islands. Villages began trading, and Mokran's family even visited her to see her happy life among her new tribe. During one of these visits, Mokran's father remarked, maybe living alongside others isn't so bad after all. One evening, as they embraced, Mokran looked into Eonyong's eyes and told him she had a surprise. I'm pregnant. Eonyong was over the moon. And there, in that quiet moment, they knew they were finally home, bound by love, unity, and a story for the ages. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on new content. Share your thoughts in the comments below, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep imagining and keep creating.